Going to speak on Poland's policy toward Asian states. More general than yesterday about Polish-Indian relations. Just I think that it's necessary to show the background of our interest in Asia. First of all, probably it would be interesting for you to listen how we see Asia, why Asia is important for the Polish foreign policy, if it is important. It is your judgment afterwards. How we see Asia. Asia is seen in Europe and in Poland as by the beginning of 21st century as a rather heterogeneous area that includes countries of different background. The countries of different level of social and economic development, different political systems, different cultures, different religious, the great ethnic diversity. That Asia is a continent of unusual, very different history. Generally, we can say that Asia, it is my opinion, is a continent where the Cold War is not yet finished, where divided states still exists. We can say that the main example is China, divided between Taiwan and continental China. It is divided Korea. It is not so far from the moment it was divided Vietnam. Asia is a continent where the nuclear weapon is possessed by so many countries. It is India, Pakistan, and China, plus American weapon in Korea, plus on the sea, the weapons which occasionally are present on the ships of Britain, France, and Russia. The Cold War is not finished yet because the rivalry between the superpowers is not yet finished in Asia. Moreover, still so many conflicts from the 20th century, even from the colonial period, is not yet solved. So we can say that we observe as an additional very important moment the rivalry and the concentrated aspiration for domination among the leading Asian powers. The rivalry between China and India, the rivalry between India and Pakistan, the presence of the foreign troops on the Asian continent. It's enough to mention the Afghan war, but from the other hand, the few dozen thousand American soldiers in South Korea. So we can say that still Asia is a continent of many open and many potential conflicts. What is the most important among them? Still unsolved situation on Korean Peninsula, divided Korean Peninsula and presence of the foreign troops. Without doubts, the Afghanistan and the situation in Afghanistan. Then the current situation in Taiwan Strait still endangered the peace in the region. Territorial disputes between the states, especially in the maritime areas. It is due to the fact that very often the oil and gas is found around. Then extra involvement of superpowers. Bilateral and regional dimension with land dispute is another one source of conflict. The mother of all conflicts in the region is, of course, Kashmiri question, which is not yet finally solved. Still, we have a question of dispute between China and India over the border, Aksai Chin region. There are still problematic state relations between India and Pakistan. I've read in today's The Hindu that new ambassador of Pakistan was nominated in India. And the former ambassador was nominated Secretary of State, so maybe it is a good signal for both sides. And last but not least, we are speaking not so often about Central Asia, but in Central Asia there are dozens of border conflicts among the newly independent states. Asia is a continent of paradoxes. In Asia, we have the richest states of the world, as Japan, Singapore, and Brunei. And in Asia, we have the poorest countries of the world, Afghanistan, Cambodia, Burma, Laos, North Korea. Asia is a continent of the biggest countries, as India, China, Indonesia, and the smallest countries of the world, as Maldives or Bhutan. Asia is a continent of the states with the highest population, India, China, and the countries with the smallest population, as the Bhutan, which have been mentioned previously. Asia is a continent of incredible cultural and civilization diversity. If you look at the other continents, we can say that generally Europe is homogeneous, the same roots, the same tradition. North America is almost as shoot from the same shop. Latin America is what the difference is between the Portugal or Spanish culture, as maybe like between Polish and Ukrainian, so it is very close. But if you look at Asia, you will find three great civilizations, not the cultures, but civilizations. The Hindu, the Confucianism, Chinese, Taoism, Buddhism, and many other. What is small in Asia is big in Europe. In Asia is placed the biggest Muslim country of the world. In Asia is placed the biggest Hindu country of the world. In Asia is placed the big Taoism country of the world, and so on, so on. So those civilizations, I'm not going to say that in Asia we observe the clash of civilizations, but we observe the mixing of different civilizations. Full spectrum is seen on political level. We have here in Asia countries of totalitarian or extremely authoritarian regimes, as North Korea. And from the other hand, we have the biggest democracy of the world, India, with a long, great tradition. 5 Asian states, India, Japan, China, South Korea, Indonesia, take part in G20 meetings. So we can say that 1/4 of G20, who is deciding about the mainstream of the world economic policy, belong to Asia. But from the other hand, 66% of the globe are in Asia. 800 million people are living in Asia for $1 per day or less. The persistent problems of Asia are nutrition, access to drinkable water, and the question of access to basic health care. So, from paradox to paradox, the biggest, the smallest, the richest, the poorest, the best developed, the less developed. In spite of these weaknesses, the world's economic and political center of gravity is clearly been shifting to Asia for almost last 2 decades. Asia's position in the world's economy has strengthened vis-à-vis the Western world too. The role of India, China, Japan, and South Korea still is rising. It would be probably interesting for you to listen what is saying about it the special report prepared by US National Intelligence Council, let's say CIA, in 2008 about Global Trends 2025. So there are predictions of the best analysts of the USA about the coming situation in the world. Transformed World predict that the international system will be multipolar by 2025. Today we observe rather one polar system. How to say, the gravity is with the USA as the only and the most important player in the world. By 2025, the world will move to the situation being multipolar. And what is interesting with China and India, who are going to be the most important new pools in the system. So this multipolar system will be in great portion depends on not only USA, but China and India too. The report predicts that by 2025, China will be the world's biggest second economy and the most influential global military power. By 2025, China will be the biggest in the world importer of natural resources. By 2025, India will rise to the third place among the world's biggest economic powers. Both countries, India and China, will also constitute gigantic consumer market, becoming even more attractive for many Western countries than the Western Europe and the USA. This same report predicts that most of those who will join the middle class in the period up to 2025 will come from China and India. So the report predicts that level of life and that wellness of the society will be the biggest in these two giant countries. Whatever we say, it's necessary to add that the report underlines the role of integration processes in Asia and that we will observe the growing role of ASEAN countries. The report is saying nothing about the future of the SAARC. Today, Asia, it is 61% of world's population, 40% of global GDP, 28% of global export and 25.3% of global import today. Asia represents tremendous potential for further growth in, still according to this report, production capabilities, consumer market, growing investment potential, competitiveness and mobility of the labor force, which we observe even today, traditional qualities connected with collective work skill will give additional support for the development of those countries. Report underline the role of discipline, diligence, and ingrained need for saving. India is the biggest owner of the gold in all over the world, but I've read it in today's newspaper, it's not as good as it was. The China is a little better. Then we observe in Asia something what is not observed in the other part of the world, the ability to make sacrifices. Next, desire to perfect acquired skill and broaden knowledge. Then, qualities related to traditional Confucian and Buddhist value. It is underlined that those two philosophies will be serving to the development of the continent. Then they underline the role of hierarchical model of social organization, which helps to construct the organization and to conduct the processes. It is underlined again, dominant but also welfare-oriented role of the state. So the state is always present in the, how to say, simplifying it, social policy of the Asian states. And last but not least, what is underlined by the authors of this report is said that more and more the so-called third way of development will have vital importance for Asia, and it is labeled as the role of Asian values. Finally, such an animal as the Asian values were found as a very important additional aspect of the development of Asia. They conclude that the global rise of Asian political and economic rise will be very carefully watched and analyzed in European Union, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. So in the best developed world today. It is how the Asia is seen from the, let's say, Western point of view, from the perspective of the USA, from the perspective of the European Union. So we can say that the picture is amazed. Even today, Asia is one of the most attractive places to be, to make businesses with, and to be rooted, to be present for the coming future. It is why, for Polish foreign policy, Asia is important too. In the previous time, Asia was important for Poland from a political point of view. I have spoken about it, just giving an examples why the socialist camp and non-alignment movement had almost common interests. Today there is not socialist camp, and the power of the non-alignment movement disappeared. Even I have a trouble to say who is a leader of non-alignment movement today. Do you know? Who is leading non-alignment movement today? Last year in Kuala Lumpur was meeting It's better, you know, that the only better situation was when Libya was chief of the Commission for Human Rights in the United Nations organization. He ran as a leader of the non-alignment movement. It's okay, I bought it. Okay, what about Poland? By the beginning, it's necessary to say that since the systemic transformation of Poland by the end of 1989, no one Polish government has focused its efforts on Poland's presence in Asia. So last 20 years, from this point of view, they are rather lost years. And the choice was easy. That time, we applied for the membership in the United Europe and in NATO. So the Polish foreign policy was concentrated at first on these two main tasks. Polish priorities were placed in Europe. Our priority was escape from the dark zone and to belong to the bigger institution, organization, and the structure which will give us security in the economic sense and in the strategic military sense. It is out of question that Poland poorly defined and ineffectively pursued political and economic objectives in Asia. As I said, politically, we've had the excellent relations with Asia, with the biggest and with those smaller, with India, China, Indonesia, in Malaysia, Thailand, with the Philippines, even with Brunei. We never paid visit to Brunei because Sultan is always absent somewhere in Europe, but we have full diplomatic relations with Brunei too. But it's necessary to say that we've had, and still we have, rather poor and ineffective presence of Poland in Asia. We do not use still the ASEM mechanism to support our presence there. It's enough to say that between 1994 and 2009, because they are the last statistics, Poland's trade value with Asia Pacific increased 12 times. Polish exports grow 4 times, but import 15 times. In 1994, the negative trade balance between Asia and Poland was on the level about $900 million. In 2009, the Polish deficit reached $22 billion. You can see the difference, how many goods we import and that we sell almost nothing for $1 billion. What are other reasons for such an unbalanced growth of trade in the case of Poland? First and the most important, Poland's lack of organized, coordinated, and long-term promotional activity directed to Asia Pacific. It is not only a question of how far from Poland it is and how costly it is, but there is not a general idea how to do it. Being member of the United Europe, from one hand, and being member of very exclusive club, the 20 the best developed economies in the world, Poland is usually perceived in Asia Pacific as a rather third-rank country, or is not noticed at all. And it is not on the Asia Pacific side to be online, but it is the country who is trying to be, if it is trying. In Poland's ruling elites, the knowledge on current position of Asia-Pacific unfortunately is still limited. The Polish politicians are at first fascinated by Europe and Euro-Atlantic relations. And results we can observe. It is not without the results for the development of economic and political cooperation with this region of the world. And there is some paradox. As I said, in 1989, Poland has the biggest network of diplomatic missions in Asia-Pacific, the biggest vis-à-vis other socialist so-called states. We have in the region 17 embassies. Poland was presented in all multinational organizations. We've been part of the International Commission in Indonesia in 1954 till 1975. Since 1953, Poland is member of Neutral Supervisory Commission in Korea. We had a very strong and very close cooperation through the United Nations channels, and Polish peacekeeping forces cooperated with peacekeeping forces, for example, of India. What it is here, what's happened to all of these, let's say, success and achievements? Why they are not used in the Polish foreign policy? At the time I've stated the Minister of Foreign Affairs, as I told you, I prepared a strategy of Poland toward Asia, toward developing countries, non-European developing countries. And this strategy still is in power because no one new strategy was adopted by the government. But the question, is this strategy alive? I don't know. Who is the most important partner of Poland in Asia? From the economic point of view, it is out of question that it is China today. China's role in the growing economy of the world is out of any discussion. And it is principal reason why China is a priority partner for Poland in the long-term perspectives. Bilateral relations between Poland and China are as old as 1949. Poland was among those who recognized the Chinese government almost immediately after the People's Revolution in 1949. And having even different historical and cultural experiences, different size, different position, different regional and global aspiration, we believe that we are partner for China. What is the Polish main asset? On political level, it is a fact that we've been among those first who came, and it is noticed. What are the other? China is a country of ever-increasing importance in solving global and regional problems. So it's necessary to be close to China, to be partner in such a situation. The Chinese position in international organization, which is very strong. It's another additional asset for the relation between the states. The global economic situation shows us which country is and in coming years will be important. So to have economic connection with China is very important. there were some first attempts of big businesses with China, till now without great successes. China, for example, or a Chinese company came to Poland to construct Polish highways, and they failed. Still, there is a problem who is going to pay for what was not done on time. But from the other hand, still Chinese capital is in Poland needed. Chinese companies continues the expansion in the world, but from our point of view, unfortunately, not yet in Poland. But generally, China is seen as the largest potential foreign investor in Poland too. It is a chance for Poland. You must remember that China has a great money to spend. They have more than $4 trillion money in their banks to invest. What could be important from Chinese point of view? The fact that Poland is placed in good place in the Central Europe,